Welcome to Dawn's Kitchen. Today we will be taking a whole bird and breaking it down into legs, breasts, wings and carcass. First things first, you need to get rid of this bit of string that just holds the bird together. This is necessary if you're roasting the bird as a whole because it keeps the bird compact and helps it to cook more evenly. But for what we're doing today, we need to get rid of it. So take that off and pop that into your waste bowl. So next thing, unfold the bird. If you are a bit queasy about dealing with raw meat, this is a good time to just get used to handling the bird and get a little bit familiar with the construction of the bird. So you've got the wings here, the legs here, the breast meat here. Today we're also going to remove the chicken oysters, which are situated about here. Just to sort of put it into perspective, some people often wonder, okay, this is how the bird would work in nature, okay, so, you know, feet, wings, okay, all fairly self-explanatory. We're going to start by turning the bird what would traditionally, I guess, be upside down. So I'm going to put the breast down onto the board and the legs facing away from me. The reason for this is I'm going to remove the chicken oysters. This is part of the bird which is considered to be part of quite a delicacy, which you don't always get when you are having the bird butchered or jointed for you. So to identify where the oysters are, there are a number of ways of doing that. If you take the chicken legs and pull them back, you can often see the oysters here. So it depends on what kind of life your bird's had, how active it's been. If it's not been particularly active, these don't always pop. So if you can't see them, take a line that runs round from the bottom of the leg. So if you imagine the leg starts here and keep that line running round. You're then going to take your knife and you're going to run along. You can see a slight bump here, so run beneath that in a nice straight cut. You're not aiming to go through bone here. You should never go through bone with your knife. That will ruin your knife. If you do need to cut through bone, you're going to be using some scissors. But for today, we're going to do most of what we need to do with a knife. So take the knife then and run it centrally in between these two chicken oysters here. So if you push them up here, you see. So you're going to run your knife in between that and down to cross over the line that you've created here. You're then going to use your knife and you're going to use just the very end of your knife. So I find it easier to place my finger on my knife, then I've got more control because I'm only using the very end of my knife. Move the bird to suit you, don't try and cut round it, okay? What you're then going to do is you're then going to just lift this chicken oyster out. And if you imagine the oyster sits in a little socket, so you are going to try and get your knife just underneath that just to release it. You're not going to cut it out, just initially release it. Okay, so knife in, okay, point of your knife, just in a little sawing motion. I'm now going to cut this way, so I'm going to turn my knife around so I'm actually using the sharp bit of my knife to cut, okay, and when I've done that, I should be able to just lift the oyster up, okay? That's all I'm looking to do, just lift it up like this, okay? Other side, again, that little socket that I need to edge my knife into, so again, pushing my knife into the bird. There is a bone there, so as I get to the bone, that's my cue to stop and just release this little delicacy here, which, as you can see, I guess does look a little bit like an oyster. Okay, what I then need to do is to turn the bird back. Okay, so turn the bird back with breast side up, and I'm now going to take the legs off and take the oyster, leaving the oyster attached to the leg. So the easiest way I find to do this is to hold the bird up. Okay, this creates a bit of tension between the carcass and the bird and makes it much easier to cut. When you're cutting, you want to aim to use a slashing motion for most of the major cuts. That means that you are not tearing away at things and you're doing a much smoother cut. So this area here, this is all skin, okay? This is not, the high value meat that we want. So we can be pretty gung-ho with that actually. So use your knife to just slice. Once you make that first slice, you'll be able to see your leg meat here and your breast meat here, and you can see a distinct line where this is just skin, so you can just cut down there quite quite easily without worrying too much about cutting into your meat. Again here, just skin, so just cut through that, okay? You look at this meat here, okay, although there is meat there rather than just skin, it's not exactly a large amount of meat, so you probably will afford to lose that. Once you've brought this line down to here, you can then turn your bird over, and this line that you cut underneath the oyster, you're going to bring your leg line just to join that line. So that then takes all that meat away. Okay, turn your bird back over, and what we're now going to do is we're going to release the socket, the hip socket, from the carcass. So how you do that is you need your fingers to be well underneath. Okay, so here's the line that I cut right down the center of the bird, and my fingers are well underneath. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to take this finger and I'm going to push the finger up and pull the thumb back. Okay, if you don't have the strength to do that, some people find it easier with the thumb instead of the finger. I'm going to do it both ways so you get to see both. So fingers well underneath, thumb on the sort of the knee joint of the bird, hold onto the carcass and push up, and that will release this hip socket here, which at this moment is all that's really holding that leg on. Okay, so we can now turn the bird over, leaving the oyster attached to the leg. Okay, once we've got that oyster off there, we can then just cut through this here, which at this point is all just skin and nice and easy to cut flesh. Okay, pop that to one side. Okay, we're going to repeat the same on the other side, so you get 2 goes. Okay, so this side here, okay, I find it easier to turn the bird round now. Okay, because then I can hold here to create that tension, slice the skin here. Okay, move that round and come back again to where the line was underneath my oyster. Okay, so that then comes back to where I started. Okay, this time I'll do it with my thumb. So this time, thumb on the base, okay, sort of doing it backwards. So this time I'm going to push my thumb down and pull my fingers up. Okay, so push down and pull up, and you will see, turn it there. Again, the hip joint there is released, which is what's holding the leg onto the bird. Okay, so come under your chicken oyster. Okay, making sure that we want to get that because that's the good stuff. Okay, and then it'll be a nice straightforward cut just through flesh to take your leg off. Okay. Wings are an interesting prospect in the UK. In America, they're a huge thing, obviously, chicken wings, but birds in the States are bred different. It's a different breed of bird, which gives them much more meat. If I'm honest with you, I take mine off more because it makes it easier for me to access the high value breast meat. It also makes it, it's nice to pop it in with the carcass and you can create a bit of a stock with it, okay? So again, this sort of holding it up to create tension makes it easier to find where you're going to start. You see the wing finishes here and the breast starts there, and there's a little line around there, and that's the line you're going to follow with your knife. Trying, whenever possible, to do so with a slashing motion as you go round. Okay? Bring that all the way round till you get back to where you start. So the wing has certain ways which will go naturally. If you go that way, you're not creating any tension. What you need to do is to move in the opposite direction to the wing wants to go, and that will then pop that joint for you. So push it back. Okay, and then that joint just pops out nice and easy. You can then just use your knife again to ease off the wing, okay? Same again on the other side. Hold it up to create the tension, line there where the wing meets the carcass. Bring that round. Back to where we start. Can't be that way because that's not creating any tension. Oh, there you go, there it is. So away from the bird, hold firm here and pop it. Okay, there's the joint out. So I can then get the knife underneath there, and there's the wing joint. Okay, right, again, breast sides up. We're now going to remove the breast, which is usually considered the prime joint. Okay, running down the centre here, you'll see what's called the fat line, and that marks where the keel bone is. So what we're going to do is you're going to put your knife on there, and you're just going to run it straight down the fat line. Okay, that will show you the keel bone here. The job now is to go to one side of the keel bone and then the other side. Whichever side your knife falls to, that's where I tend to start. So this side is where my knife's falling to. So I'm going to start, again, very important to use that slashing motion now. So slashing down the bird, and I find it easier if I release this end and start at one end. Use your thumbs, use your fingers to get in there, because your fingers won't cut through meat, whereas your knife will. And you don't want to cut through the meat. You want to have that sort of scratching sensation of your knife running alongside bone, because that means no meat is being wasted. The nice thing about breast meat is it has a slight sort of Play-Doh-esque sense to it. So if you do cut it, you can go back with your knife and sort of reattach it to the bulk of the breast. So if you do end up cutting through it quite and leaving a bit of flesh on here, you can always go back, release it, cut it off, and then just sort of ease it back into the breast. And when you cut the breast, you'll never know. I've got a bit of just skin here, which I'm going to take off, okay? And then I'm going to just keep using my knife to just pickle that away from the keel bone in the centre there. Right, as the bird comes down, the bird's rib cage goes down. So you're going to cut down, then you're going to cut round the rib cage. So as you go, just use your knife to work your way around those rib cages. Here, you've got the wishing bone, okay? And you can quite often do better work with your thumb, just pushing the meat down, than you will trying to cut round that and ending up cutting into the flesh. So when you get to this point here, you've got that sort of meat again, which is very thin and more skin than meat. So I just tend to lose that. Okay. As you come round, cut down, cut down, through until you've got your chicken breast. Once you've got your chicken breast, just turn it over and have a good poke in there. Make sure you've not cut any bone off. You don't want any bone in there. People don't expect to get bone in a chicken fillet or a chicken breast, so they're not looking for it. And chicken bones can be very dangerous because they tend to shatter. This here is called the mini fillet, and that sits inside the main fillet. I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest with you, because it's got this fat line that runs right down the centre of it. Not necessarily bad for you, but texturally I'll find it a bit jarring if I'm eating a chicken breast. What I have noticed more and more is the supermarkets are selling this as mini fillets, and you think you're getting small pieces of chicken breast, and you've got this fat line that runs right down the centre of it, which makes it not very appetising, and that's why they're selling it. Okay, so I tend to pop that to one side. Okay, so here you've got the main area where your chicken breast was attached, so you can sometimes get bits in here of bone and blood and that sort of stuff, so I tend to just trim those up a little bit. Okay, good feel around there. Make sure you've got no bone, sort of very sort of gelatinous sort of fat around here, which isn't very pleasant. So again, just take your knife and trim that off. And then you've got your chicken breast. Okay, same again. Always find this one a little bit more challenging because you haven't got the natural weight of the bird to play against. Okay, so run your knife down the keel bone using a short but slashing rather than sawing motion. Again, if you release it from the top, that gives you a better idea of what you're doing. Okay. Okay, you can see it coming away quite nicely here. It's a slashing motion to release that up here. You can see here what I say about leaving a little bit too much meat on. So I'm going to bring my knife underneath that. And then when I take the breast off, by the time you cook it, you'll never know. And particularly if you're putting it into a curry or something like that, you're going to cut it up anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Try to use your slashing motion, because that's less likely to tear at your meat. Underneath your rib cage. You've got your wishbone here again, so you can either peel that out, or alternatively, if you're struggling with that, cut it off. Okay, cut it off. Don't worry about getting it into the chicken breast, because we can always, sometimes easier to get it out afterwards than it is to try and cut it off in the first place, or cut round it. Okay, so pop the carcass to one side. Okay, and then I know it's there, so I know I have to find it, and there it is. And I can simply just pull that out. Like I say, sometimes a lot easier than trying to get it off the bird with that in there is just to give it up as a lost cause and chase it afterwards, but you just really must remember it's there. Okay, you feel it's there. Horrible bit of sort of gelatinous nasty fat here, we'll trim that off. That goes in with my carcass, ready to make a nice stock. Bit of a poke around here. Where this is attached here, I do have something here which is a little bit hard, don't want that in there, so I'm going to trim that out. Turn it over, flatten out my skin. I've got 2 chicken breasts, 2 chicken wings, 2 chicken legs, and 1 chicken carcass, which you can buy in France, but you can't buy in the UK. Pop back next time. We'll show you how to make a chicken Kiev. We'll show you how to further break down the chicken leg into a drumstick and a thigh, and also how to create a ballotine with the chicken leg by removing all the bones and then rolling it. Thank you very much for joining us at Dawn's Kitchen today. Look forward to seeing you soon.